Over the years, I've tutored a lot of people in Spanish who were learning the language on their own. They would come to me asking me to help them, fill the gaps in their language and reach that next level. So my first question to all of them is, well, how well do you speak Spanish now? Now, some of them would say, oh, I'm an absolute beginner, and those were always fun to work with. But many of them would come back saying something like, oh, I'm a B1, or I'm a B2, or I think I'm a C1. And you know what that told me? Nothing. That whole B1, B2, C1 thing, those are language proficiency levels that are pretty subjective, and they don't tell me what you necessarily need to work on. And that's because learning Spanish is not a linear process, We don't all learn the same aspects of the language in the same order. As a result, it wasn't uncommon for me to meet someone who spoke the language generally pretty well. Like, they would impress me talking about certain things, but then it became clear that they had skipped some really important parts of the language. I would probably equate it to listening to someone play an instrument, and they're playing it really well, but then they're hitting those really hard notes that are just making you cringe. It's like that. So in order to identify those areas that we needed to work on so we could fix them, I would give them the following test, the one you see on the screen, and ask them to write out their translations without looking anything up. This test was not intended to test the students on every aspect of the Spanish language. I mean, there's only 10 translations here, right? For example, you won't see the future tense used in any of those translations. And the reason is that the future tense is not difficult to learn or use. The purpose of this test is to identify the lack of knowledge in more complex areas of the language that many students tend to skip or overlook because they didn't know how important they were. So you want to take a stab at it yourself, kind of see how I would evaluate your Spanish. And again, I'm not seeing how you're constructing them, so we've lacked that. But if you're getting these particular ones wrong, I can tell you exactly what you need to study. I mean, that's nice, right? If you do want to try this, go ahead and stop the video now and write out your answers. Then start the video again, and I'm going to go through them, all right? All right, you ready to go through these? I know some folks are impatient, so I'm going to put all of the answers on the screen. Some of you are like, oh, perfect, moved on to the next video, and that's fine. If you did get them all correct, that's fantastic. That means you understand things like direct and indirect object pronouns, the subjunctive, the imperfect subjunctive, how to use the conditional, the past, all that. Very impressed. For you folks that got some wrong and you want me to go through what you need to work on and why they're the way they are, go ahead and stick around. So let's look at number 1. A Juan le gusta viajar y acampar. What I'm looking for here is that you understand how this type of verb works in Spanish. Because in English, if I say I like something, I'm the subject, that's my verb, and whatever I like is the object. But in Spanish, it doesn't work that way. In Spanish, the thing you like is actually the subject. You're saying that thing is pleasing to you. If you had trouble with this one, you can just go in YouTube or in Google and type in like gustar, encantar, or verbs like that, and you're going to find a ton of resources to help you get through this. The other thing I was looking for here is to make sure that people used viajar and acampar. Those are the infinitives or the unconjugated forms of those verbs, and you didn't say something like viajando or acampando. Let's go to number 2. Do you want me to take out the garbage? ¿Quieres que saque la basura? ¿Quieres que saque la basura? This one is always my telltale translation. If they get this wrong, they don't understand the subjunctive at all. And if you don't understand the subjunctive, you're never going to reach that level in Spanish. The Spanish subjunctive, I think, is the keystone to mastering Spanish. English speakers, we tend to, skip around the subjunctive. We don't think it's important. And so if you don't learn it, you're never going to get this type of sentence. Now, if you translated literally from your English and you're thinking more, you want me to take out the garbage, and you came up with something like, ¿Me quieres sacar la basura? Study the subjunctive. If you're looking for a place to start learning about the subjunctive, you can do it right here on this channel. I have a playlist called Subjunctive Triggers. I'll show you how to conjugate first in the present subjunctive, and then what types of constructions are going to require it. And this one is in there. The sun's getting a little bright, so I'm going to relocate here. Number 3, did you give the book to Maria? Yes, I gave it to her. This one is testing direct and indirect object pronouns, and if you know how to use them together. Should have come up with, ¿Le diste el libro a María? Did you give the book to Maria? I'm looking for you to have that redundant le and still mention Maria, okay? Super important. Yes, I gave it to her. Sí, se lo di. So again, if you had trouble with this one, look up direct and indirect object pronouns in Spanish. You're going to find stuff on this channel on that as well. Number 4, if I were rich, I would move to Spain. Si fuera rico, me mudaría a España. In this one, I'm testing to see if the person understands the subjunctive again. Yes, you're going to see that through a lot of these, okay? It's that important. In this one, we're talking about the subjunctive in the past tense, which is the imperfect subjunctive. That is where the fuera comes in. Now, in a construction like this, where we're talking about hypotheticals, it is a common relationship to see the imperfect subjunctive and the conditional work together. And because of that, you'll notice that me mudaría is in the conditional. If you got this one wrong, I have a video about this particular topic and this relationship on this channel. Number 5, Maria was sad when she arrived to the office. María estaba triste cuando llegó a la oficina. In this one, I'm testing that you understand the relationship between the two different past tense, the imperfect and the preterite. Our first clause there, María estaba triste, is in the imperfect because this is in progress in the past when something else happened. Cuando llegó a la oficina. Llegó is in the preterite. If you got this one wrong, you're going to need to focus on when to use the imperfect and the preterite in Spanish. Number 6, I worked for that company for 10 years. Trabajé para esa empresa durante 10 años. What I'm looking for here are a couple things. One thing, right up there at front, did you get that verb correct? That means that you understand the preterite better, or did you choose the imperfect, right? Again, preterite imperfect. Next thing I'm looking for is the use of para there. Some people will say por, or they're confused, like working for someone. If you had trouble with that one, you need to be studying por and para and when to use each one. Now the next thing I came to is that durante, right? Some folks had por in there. It's not necessarily wrong, but usually for longer periods of times like years, it's more common to see durante. So if you had por in there, I'm okay. If you had durante, even better. If you had para in there or something else, no, don't do that again. Number 7, the interior of the car is hot because it's hot outside. You should have had something like, el interior del coche está caliente porque hace calor fuera or hace calor afuera. What I'm looking for right away is that you can translate that the interior of the car is hot. You understand the different types of hot. You know, when I'm hot, something's hot, when the weather's hot, those are translated differently. And this is testing at least 2 of them. So in that first one, you should have come up with está caliente, right? And why? Because it's hot outside. I want to see hace calor. That's what I'm looking for there. If you had trouble with that one, I have a video breaking this down on when to use each one. I'm talking about a lot of different videos that are on my channel right now. So what I'm going to do is give you a complete list of everything I'm talking about, and I'm going to stick it in the description section of the video. All right? I'm going to make life easy for you. I'm going to do your homework so you can be better at Spanish. Number 8, Juan told me that he wouldn't help me until I paid him. Not a very nice guy, huh? Juan me dijo que no me ayudaría hasta que le pagara. In this one, I'm looking for several different things. First thing I'm looking for is that you got that first clause right, Juan me dijo, which tells me that you're using the preterite correctly, okay? The next thing I'm looking for is that verb ayudaría, ayudaría. And that comes from ayudar, to help, and it's in the conditional tense. I want to see if you conjugated that correctly, because we use the conditional tense in the past to talk about things in the future. And I bet you can already tell what the last thing I'm looking for, because, well, there's not a lot left in that sentence, and that is the hasta que le pagara part. And pagara comes from pagar, and it is in the imperfect subjunctive. Yes, the subjunctive again. It is so important in Spanish. Number 9, I dropped the glass accidentally. I wasn't looking for you to translate the accidentally part. It was just going to give you some guidance on how to translate this one. And you should have come up with se me cayó el vaso. Se me cayó el vaso. If you had trouble with this particular construction, what you should be looking up is pronominal verbs that work with le. Now, pronominal verbs are verbs, you know, that in the infinitive you could stick se on. Some people just call them all reflexive verbs, but they're not all reflexive verbs. The way it works is that all reflexive verbs are pronominal verbs, but not all pronominal verbs are reflexive verbs. I talk about that in some other videos. I have a video about this topic on the channel if you want to check that out first. It's a little older. I'm going to be doing an updated version with a lot more details soon. So if that sort of thing interests you and you're not already subscribing to the channel, you might want to subscribe. Just saying. And the last one, number 10, put the suitcases on the bed. Pon las maletas sobre la cama. Now if you had ponga there, that's fine too. I'll accept either one. What I'm looking for here is that you understand the imperative mood, also known as the command form, all right? I just want to talk briefly about that word sobre there, meaning on the bed, sobre la cama. Sobre is used a lot for that, like on the table, on top of something, but there are other options. If you had en or encima de or anything like that, that's fine. What I'm looking for here is that you got that verb right in the front of the sentence. Well, that's it for the video. I hope you found it informative, and I hoped it helped you identify some of the gaps in your Spanish. Again, I'm going to be putting links to all of the videos I mentioned in the description section of this one. So if you don't have anything else to do today, maybe you're just going to be binge watching these and really improving your Spanish. Just saying. Well, until next time, hasta luego.